Let's talk about RFKJ. So I didn't get to the soundbite yesterday, but there were a couple of extraordinary exchanges in his day 2 in front of the health committee confirmation hearing. He had to go through 2. And Rand Paul is just a star. I mean, good luck challenging Rand Paul on medical issues. Just ask Dr. Fauci how that went. Rand Paul is one of the reasons Dr. Fauci felt he needed a pardon, because it seemed clear that Dr. Fauci lied to Rand Paul's face repeatedly while under oath about his gain of function, involvement, and so on. And Rand Paul just knew the questions to ask Dr. Fauci during the relevant time. He's been very fearless. So he used his time at this confirmation hearing to respond to Senator Cassidy, who also is a doctor. And Senator Cassidy of Louisiana, we talked about him yesterday. He's a problem. He's a pivotal vote on this. So I'm going to set it up by showing you Cassidy and RFKJ on vaccines. And then I'm going to show Rand Paul using his time to respond to it. I mean, it may all come down to this. So take a look at Cassidy in SOT 20.
If you are approved to this decision, to this position, will you say unequivocally, will you reassure mothers unequivocally and without qualification that the measles and hepatitis B vaccines do not cause autism?
Senator, I am not going into the agency with any.
Well, that's kind of a yes or no question, because because the data is there. And that's kind of a yes or no. And I don't mean to cut you off, but that really is a yes or no.
If the data is there, I will absolutely do that.
Now, there is the data, just because I used to do hepatitis B, as I've said. I know the data is there.
Well, then I will be the first person. If you show me data, I will be the first person to assure the American people that they need to take those vaccines.
So in response to that, here's Rand Paul. SOT 21.
The reason you have distrust from people at home, why they don't believe anything you say, they don't believe government at all, is you're telling my kid to take a hepatitis B vaccine when he's 1 day old. You get it through drug use and sexually transmitted. That's how you get hepatitis B.
For the record, if a child is born to a hepatitis B mother, that child may have a 95% chance of becoming a chronic carrier. But if
we vaccinate those people, and nobody's against that.
But if
that's a very small percentage and a red herring. That is not what we're talking about. 99.9% of kids don't have a hepatitis B, Mom. And could they wait a while? Could they get vaccinated at 3 months or a year? Yes.
That's and Rand Paul understands.
But Bill Cassidy is being so stupid. We test for hepatitis B in utero, so we know if the mom has hepatitis B. That's how we're talking about. It is a mandatory, like, minute 1 vaccination in certain states. Thankfully, in Arizona, even the nurses are like, smart decision when we say no hepatitis B, because it has lost all trust and credibility in the rank and file. A lot of progress is made on that one, but this is a deeper question. Can we even criticize the child vaccination schedule at all? Like, you're trying to tell me I have to give my 8-month son the COVID vaccine? Why? Prove it to me. No, I'm not doing that. So Senator Cassidy should really, again, I hope he comes and votes for Bobby Kennedy, but he should be challenged as well. The childhood vaccination schedule is become insane. As I could say this as a father of 2 kids, the rapidity and also what they are vaccinating for are things that I think, are not necessary to be inoculated against always. Chicken pox is debatable. I had chicken pox growing up. I can understand the argument both ways. But what is the safety and the efficacy of these vaccines? Is it necessary? Do you have to go through the entire schedule? Are there any side effects? And it almost gets to this place where it's like, we shall never question vaccines. They're nothing but great. Megyn, I'm sure you know people that have been vaccine injured, and it's a very serious thing. And they are treated as if they are like modern day cultural lepers. They're not allowed to be talked to. You're not allowed to be considered. And the COVID vaccine in particular, we had Nancy Mace, who came out and said that she's had health problems that have never changed since she got the COVID vaccine. And we were told that it was safe and effective. And yet then we look at all these studies that they reference. It turns out that there's a lot of corruption in the medical and scientific literature. A lot of these pharmaceutical companies are funding these studies. Again, all of us are pro-vaccine. We want vaccines to be safe and effective, obviously. But I'm also a free thinker, and I'm not just going to carry the water for people that have done nothing to earn our trust. And so I hope we can win over Senator Cassidy. I find his comments to just be laughable in some ways, because anyone knows that, okay, the hepatitis B vaccine in particular, yes, if a mom has hepatitis B, which we test for, then give the kid the vaccine. But within minutes of a child's birth, you're trying to tell me that there's no side effect for pumping them with a hepatitis B vaccine, which is completely unnecessary, I think is wrong. I think it's one of the reasons why we need Bobby Kennedy so badly. So I certainly hope he'll end up voting for RFK.
To me, it's so infuriating. I give my kids all the vaccines. They're not vaccine injured, thank God. By the way, highly recommend the shingles vaccine as an adult because you can get it in your eye. It's just disgusting. Anyway, apparently it's very, very painful too, but that's an adult. That's an adult decision. You can decide whether you want these vaccines or not. But Bobby Kennedy, they were all over him on the vaccines. As the audience now knows, he was on the show for 4 hours. We just spent two full hours on vaccines, and not COVID vaccines. These vaccines that he's getting cross-examined over, MMR vaccine, and his long history of alleged vaccine denialism that he got cross-examined over and over and over and over again. And the long and the short of it is, Bobby Kennedy jumped up and down and said, there's mercury in these vaccines, and I don't know that it's safe. And they said, you're crazy. It's totally safe. You're a nutcase. And what wound up happening? They took it out. And we went to all of Bobby Kennedy's critics who said, he's got this problem with mercury in the vaccines. Mercury's totally safe. It's safe. It's safe. And then Bobby Kennedy came out and he explained this all on our show about how it was methyl mercury that they were saying was safe, and they said that it was problematic, but it was this other ethyl mercury. Yep. And long story short, the one that they said was totally unassailable stayed in the brain of the monkeys that were tested for months afterward. He explains it all right? Good luck challenging him on the science behind the vaccines. The bottom line is they took out the mercury. The same group that had been saying it's safe, it's safe, it's safe, it's safe, took it out. Not because of him. They had a closed door meeting and they said, you know what, let's remove it. But there's nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here. And then they put aluminum in these vaccines, which works. It's not exactly a preservative. It does something else for the vaccines. But that too is a potential neurotoxin. And then they say, it's nothing, it's nothing, it's nothing. Just shove it in your baby and don't give it two thoughts. But all of this is going on while the toxic stew that our children are swimming in was growing exponentially from, the pollutants in their water and the fluorine and the chloride to the pollutants in their food, to the pollutants that is on your sofa and the baby toys and the baby bottles and all around them. And Bobby Kennedy has been saying, can we just pause a little to figure out what's causing this? Why are the allergies doing this? Why are the ticks doing this? Why is the autism doing this? Why was this something you never even heard of when I was a child to something that is 1 in 30 now? And they look at him and they say, you're a kook. You're dangerous. You're dangerous. It's infuriating. It's infuriating to be standing on my side of the aisle with children or yours and to just, and again, with God, thank God, perfectly healthy children, to say, why are you so determined to stop the questions? And the COVID vaccine is even a more persuasive case where you've got young boys, 15-year-old boys with myocarditis dying, and they won't acknowledge it.
No, and by the way, the COVID vaccine is now on the childhood vaccination schedule. So there are 18-month-olds that are getting the COVID vaccine. That's never going to happen. We're not doing mRNA gene altering technology. By the way, what is the risk if my kid gets COVID? Incredibly low, remarkably low for infants and for kids that get COVID. So there's a lot to unpack there, but I think also, shouldn't the broader question be, okay, vaccines causing autism, whatever, fine, not going to get into that. But what does cause autism then? Why is it 1 in 30? Can we have a discussion of that? Are there other environmental pollutants? Are there other neurotoxins that we haven't addressed? Is it our diet? Is the radioactivity? I don't know, but something is causing it. Something is causing this massive spike, and yet Bobby is the criminal for noticing. You see, Bobby is the enemy for noticing, and the old expression goes, to find out who controls you, find out what you can't criticize. And we cannot criticize our public health authorities. And the media is so in bed with it for a very simple reason, which I hope the president and Bobby Kennedy get rid of, is you're allowed to advertise on these networks so shamelessly that they have bought the entire media industrial complex. 100%. I was laughing. I was watching the Bills-Chiefs game, and I was watching a football game doing work, and all of a sudden, the most ridiculous commercial ever pops up where it's like some guy running through a meadow and they list all the side effects of these drugs, might cause sudden death and might cause all these different things. And I said to myself, there's no way that this ad is persuasive. There's no way that there's some guy in Buffalo, New York, watching the Bills game being like, you know what, now I need to go buy that drug. No, it's part of a broader strategy, which by the way, pharmaceutical advertisements is actually the lowest cost per dollar return of anything. No, it's part of a broader strategy where they're trying to win the goodwill and control these media companies so they get favorable coverage.
Yes,
that's what it's all about. It's not about promoting their drug. No one cares about it. These are awfully produced commercials. They don't put any energy into it, right? They go through whatever DEI thing of some, black dad playing baseball with his kid in the yard. Like, okay,
right.
whatever. No, fine, whatever. It's like, no, nothing against that. And then they say, okay, here's it, Jardiance or whatever, get this drug. Ask your doctor about it. Okay, no one actually ends up doing it. Instead, what it does is it gives them air cover against any of the journalist class and any of the people making the decisions at these media companies that could potentially investigate them or give them a scintilla of negative coverage.
It's truly like the warning labels are like, you could try this to decrease your skin itchiness, but it may cause testicular boils. It's like, wait, whoa, what?
Oh, really?
Who in their right mind would sign on to that? I do want to say this to Senator Cassidy, whose vote we really need, in with all due respect. And by the way, I asked the audience to call his office yesterday and gave him the number. And I said I would call, and I did. I personally called. It was actually very funny.
They took the number down.
The guy was like, the Megyn Kelly? I'm like, yes, the Megyn Kelly. I want you to, and he was like, do you live in Louisiana? I'm like, no, but I have a loud mouth and I have a lot of listeners who do. Okay, they took the number down, but here's the email that I asked and they told me. The email is Hannah, HANNAH _bar, BARR, at Cassidy.senate.gov. Hannah _bar, HANNAH _BARR at Cassidy.senate.gov. And I think with all due respect to Hannah, and I'm sure she's a lovely person, and Senator Cassidy follows me on X, so I'm sure he saw the posts I sent his way yesterday. They need to hear from us directly. And here's why I feel so passionately about it, Charlie. Forget all that stuff about MMR vaccine, which will not be banned. Trump has said it will not be banned. Bobby has said it will not be banned. Bobby's past work to ask questions about it is in the past. He's not going to make this an issue. He's made that really clear. He has his beliefs about it, but Trump is the boss. Look at the COVID vaccine and what you said, how no one's allowed to ask questions about it. One of the people I ran into when I showed up at the RFK hearing was a guy named Carl Warner. And I know Kyle Warner because he came on the show.
He's amazing, mountain biker. Exactly
right. He's a mountain biker. And he came on the show during the height of the COVID nonsense and told his story. He lives in Oregon. All right, this is not some far right dude. And talked about what happened to him after this vaccine. And here's a clip of it. Watch.
When I went into the hospital, I said, I don't know what's going on with my heart. I think it may be a reaction to the vaccine because I got the Pfizer vaccine, about a month ago. And I've never had heart issues before, so I'm just kind of ruling things out. I'm like, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but they are linking a heart issue. I'm having this new heart issue after getting the shot. And the guy was super dismissive about it and just said, no, you're not. Yeah, it was interesting because then the doctor came in and was talking to me about how he said, hey, when I was in medical school, I had a lot of workload. I was really stressed out and I got put on antidepressants and kind of anti-anxiety medication, and it really helped me a lot. And I think that would be beneficial for you too. And, I was like, thank you, but no, thank you. I think this is just a heart thing I'm dealing with.
I'm only anxious now because my heart is racing and I'm worried about my heart. It's episode 222. It's very worth your time to go back and listen to Kyle's story. There's a reason he showed up. This is about more than the MMR vaccine, which is fine. It's in place. It's not going anywhere. It's about a whole, I know it gets overused, but medical industrial complex that cares more about hooking you on drugs like SSRIs and taking every single vaccine so that they can make a ton of money like Pfizer did, like Moderna did. They cannot be sued. And then they don't care. When you get vaccine injured like Kyle, they don't give a shit. Well, RFKJ cares. Jay Bhattacharya is going to care. Marty McCary, ideally at FDA, is going to care. And you need a disruptor like RFKJ at the top to run herd on it. Someone who will not be bullied by these behemoths who have more money than God. We continue to face uncertainty when it comes to the economy, with a perfect storm brewing as Social Security and Medicare hit a breaking point as the largest generation is hitting retirement. A smaller workforce means a smaller tax base. You pair that with our growing national debt and the rising cost of living, and we could have a very big problem on our hands. So what are you doing right now to protect your family for the future? Gold can be a very safe haven in very hard economic times, and Birch Gold makes it easy to diversify a portion of your savings into physical gold. Birch Gold will help you transition an existing IRA or 401k in whole or in part into an IRA in gold. And it won't cost you one penny, not one, out of pocket. Protect your future today. Text MK to 989898 and get your free info kit on gold and a copy of The Ultimate Guide for Gold in the Trump Era with a foreword by Donald Trump Jr. There's no obligation, just information. Birch Gold has earned the trust of countless Americans looking to safeguard their savings. Text my initials, MK, to the number 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.